to the Omen Path podcast, where today, Dom, we've got a very, very special guest. We have a friend, hopefully friend of the channel soon, and head of the cEDH UK scene, Ben. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me on. It's finally good to sit down and have a bit more of a chat, that's for certain.
Yeah, so a bit of context for anyone listening. I went to the UK cEDH Championships and the Europeans last year, and Ben was a gracious host to me. We had lots of chats, and I said to him, "You've got to jump on the podcast. It'd be great to have you on." We're probably good 6-ish months on for that now, aren't we? If not a bit longer.
Yeah. No. To be fair, we were always gonna have a sit down and have a chat. The fact that you stood next to me through my top 40 game in absolute silence, you have my long-term respect.
Do you know what? Honestly, it was as much as that was a long ass game. It was honestly, from an observer, it was so entertaining because it just flipped on its head so many times. Like it was pure. It's not. I don't think that's what people identify as cEDH. But I tell you what, it was literally constant. It's like, well, what's going to happen here? What's going to happen here? Like constantly on edge. I absolutely loved it. So.
Yeah. So I never enjoy losing, especially the people that know me. No, I don't like losing. But I say Felix, the guy who won it, I did. We hugged it out afterwards, and it was one of the best games I've ever lost.
I'm so glad that wasn't me sitting down, because the mental energy from all you four was just incredible. I wouldn't have been. I probably would have got to a point. I'm like, I'm out, guys. Like my brain is dead. I can't even do this.
Yeah, as someone, even before going into cEDH, I never played big tournament Magic. I think I made it 20 or 30 steps outside of the top cut room, and I was just sat down against the wall, kind of just decompressing. Obviously, it was the end of obviously my run in the event, and it had a blast. But yeah, it was 3 hours of, it was obviously no restarts, which I'm sure we'll come to.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was just a 3-hour slog. I think it was the longest game of the event that wasn't restarted.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think the first game in the first round that run over, that did restart multiple times. How long was that after all? That was massive.
Yeah, I think it extended. Yeah, I think it was about an hour and a half over. Obviously they ended up just sending everyone for lunch. But ultimately it's I don't think anyone's particularly like angry or mad about it. Obviously this was a huge. Last year was a huge pilot year, doing an event of this size and under certain rules, but it will improve as the years go on. But it was the event was still a huge success.
We'll talk a little bit about Lisbon a bit further over. But Dom, how you doing, my friend? You keeping well? It seems like I haven't seen you in forever.
Yeah. 2 days after we recorded the last pod, so you're swanning off.
Yeah, me swanning off on holiday. How very dare I? Hey, how very dare I?
Outrageous, honestly.
I know. But at least we're putting content ahead, and we'll have something while I'm away, which is the important thing.
Yeah.
Keep the churn going, that's for sure. Okay, Ben. Right. So we're going to talk everything cEDH. We're going to talk about the Europeans cEDH tournament and how it builds up to it. We're also going to talk about the UK scene. But I want to start from the beginning with yourself. So what got you into Magic? And when did you start?
So I actually started by, I was actually looking at Yu-Gi-Oh! I know you put the pitchforks down already. And ultimately, I wasn't enjoying gaming as much. And I thought, you know what, I played this as a kid. Are there any local game clubs? And obviously found an LGS, and they said, we don't do much Yu-Gi-Oh! We do more Magic if you want to come and give it a go. So went down and learnt from there. And then obviously, as I say, started summer of 2019. It was a couple of weeks after the release of Core Set 20.
Okay.
Which is, anyone who has asked me this question, I'll say obviously the famous release of a set of quite strong elementals, like Risen Reef, 3-color Omnath, Yarok as such. And playing amongst the elementals in that color is obviously how I fell in love with the game. And then sort of touched Commander. It was the Populate pre-con that released shortly after I started playing. That was my first. That was my first Commander deck, Geared, Conclave Exile, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. yeah, that was sort of how I started. And then slowly but surely, as a lot of play groups do, power level increases. And you know, there was a couple of people in the group who had high powered decks, and it's all a bit to and fro, and we slowly but surely got into the high power realms, really, which was sort of what took over our weeknights of high power games, and then sort of found out about cEDH, and a guy in the group, Ed, he had a Sylvala parlay deck. Not that it's cEDH anymore, but back then it was. And I think we sort of played like a game of arch enemy, and none of us could touch him. He'd just win every single game. And obviously that sort of started the motivation to get up into the higher power realms. But yeah, that's the shorter version of it over the course of about 3 years. Obviously lockdown accelerated a lot of the commander game time. And sort of working around obviously lockdown restrictions, then being able to go out and play. The LGSs weren't opening up the same way or didn't have the same accessibility. And yeah, the slowly crept up for it. It's good fun.
Yeah, I think that's very typical for a lot of people for that sort of time, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have kind of an arms race begins within, if they got a particular pod they play with all the time. You know, someone gets a new deck,
Particularly around
so you've got to
Commander.
match it. Yeah, very much so. So actually, yeah, to take it to that logical kind of end game of cEDH is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, my first, well, it started off with Grand Arbiter. I wanted to be the annoying person in the group.
My man.
I know they will listen to this, so I will take a slight moment to have salt rubbed in the wounds. Dylan, who is the sort of the Kinnan player in the Midlands, a very, very good pilot on it. He's been on it since pre-release, since Kinnan released in Ikoria.
Wow.
His first ever turn 2 win he had in his hand was spoiled by a turn 1 Grand Arbiter from me.
Wow.
And he doesn't let me live it down, and I don't intend to live it down. It will constantly be a reminder that I stopped him. But then starting to try and look to win more efficiently, I then moved on to Narset Enlightened Master, the 6-drop from Tarkia.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which as I hopped onto it, it was slowly fading out. Obviously, Dranith being printed. Obviously, you're not casting anything off of the attack trigger.
Yep.
So it did fade out. But those were the 2 decks that sort of introduced me to higher power and then sort of more interactive cEDH, because that's what cEDH is for the most part. It's highly interactive. So yeah, that was sort of the final jump that sort of got me sort of thinking cEDH is the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've spoken a little bit about obviously Grand Arbiter bit. Is that your favourite style of deck, the kind of stacks, or do you have other favourite commanders now?
Yeah, Grand Arbiter, the traditional stacks may have worked a couple of years ago, or sort of more just before I actually took cEDH on in terms of it being successful. There are decks that in the meta that you'd say are similar, sort of, that put the stacks pieces down and then break parity. I don't particularly like to talk. Well, these decks are hated, but like Tyam, for example, Timna Kadama, Jay. I just say it's Jay's deck at this point. He knows it. But yeah, there's decks that obviously put down these stacks pieces and are still able to win through their own stacks. But no, my deck of choice, or what I attended the first event on, was Tivit. Obviously, Esper mid range, obviously with Thassa's Oracle, Time Civ combos.
Love it. Yes, that's my cEDH deck.
That's Dom cEDH. That one is.
Yeah. It was the first event I turned up to in Huddersfield and won it. It was a smaller event, but it still felt good. I was in seat 4 and I mana drained seat 3's Tivit to cast mine. Yeah, it was a free 6 mana. I'm not going to say no to that.
No. Sounds good.
I mean, you're not removing it once it's down. You're not paying that ward cost. You just counter it. Fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I then quickly moved on to cEDH. And then apart from I attempted Niv Mizzet for a laugh once. It did not work. Yeah.
This is the 5-color Niv,
No,
is it, or the 2-color Curiosity?
The Curiosity Niv Mizzet.
So
yeah.
Is it Miznivit Peron and the Curiosity combo?
Perun, yeah.
Perun, yeah.
So it was an Izzet control list, and it was a deck at the time. Obviously, it still had Dockside, it still had Jeweled Lotus. The deck is now dead. You can't cast it.
Yeah.
Obviously, the deck's main pilot, Shauna Giles, over in America, I believe she's left the deck now, or I've heard she has. Yeah, I tried that once, and then other than that, apart from a jokey event last December, I've been cEDH all the way through. I think I've had over 30 events on it now. Playing similar variations, but those who know, as the months have gone on, I've just tried stupider and stupider things. It has worked to some extent. But yeah, no, I'm known for sort of having success on cEDH. I believe I was the only top cut in Lisbon on cEDH.
Yeah.
I think there was 11 pilots, but sadly I was the only one to make it through. And yeah, I'm looking at moving off of it. I don't know if I can bring myself to do it. It's because I've had success on it, and I now can't see myself building the deck seriously because I've had success doing stupid things.
Okay.
And I feel like if I actually want to play seriously, I just have to leave the deck for a while. But we can come on to that. But yeah, so officially I'm a cEDH Weatherlight Captain main, 5-color Legends, not the pod variation. The pod variation is not very good. I'm just taking my opportunity to air that because I know someone else is going to listen to this who believes the pod variation is good, and it's not very good. But yeah, the 5-color Planeswalker version.
Yeah, very nice.
Okay.
I just want to before we really pour back into the sort of cEDH things, I just want to get a gauge of, before you know, probably like all of us here, you know, we all had pods. The arms race started, and before you know it, you start bringing, a pistol to a knife fight, and then it's a machine gun, it's a bazooka. It works its way right up there.
Yeah.
But what would you say, before you you hit that cEDH point? What was the style of deck and the style of commanders you enjoyed to play? I mean, was you low to the ground, nice mono red burn? Did you like a bit more of a control-y? I mean, I think I know where you're going to go with this already, but like, what was the style that you liked before you made that decision of going over to cEDH?
What? You said you think I know where I'm going to go. Where do you think I came from?
Well, the reason why I say that is because you were talking about Esper moving forward. I was wondering if there was going to be like an Esper control of some sort. Is what I was thinking.
Yeah. So my high-powered casual set of decks, and I had a few of them. My long-standing, I have a 5-color Elementals deck. Obviously, it's what I fell in love with. It's not very optimized. I mean, it has a few game changers in there, as they're now called, but that's mainly because the Vampiric and Demonic Tutor cEDH staples that are in there to get Risen Reef. Quite literally, the deck does nothing unless I have Risen Reef.
Risen Reef is fantastic.
I'm on pull from Eternity to get Risen Reef back from exile, because I know if I'm playing against my friend, it's going to get exiled. So yeah, as I've got the Elemental Tribal that will always just sit there. It's a little bit more M20 tribal, so like obviously I've got the 5 Cavaliers in there. It's the CMC of it is stupidly high.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I don't mind losing on it. And all the lands are the pretty elemental man lands, like the Ultimate Master box toppers and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's slowly getting blinged. And it's got I think that is, and it's got the serialized Zerda in, not Zerda, Kahira, the Elemental Lord in there. Packed it, so it's gonna go in there. But yeah, my more moderate to high powered decks are designed to frustrate opponents, is probably the best way to put it. I have a Riku list that is designed to copy a creature shooter spell, and from that point lock the game out. So if I get a Finale or a Cord or an Eldritch for 5 CMC and make a copy of it, I will then likely assemble a selection of the wizards that all tap to do something. So tap to bounce, tap to draw, tap to counter, tap to copy. Like Jewelcaster and Naru Meha just come in for extra wizards.
Yeah.
And then I normally just finish it off with a Seedborn Muse. So every turn, I just tap a wizard and go, do you pay the one? Do you pay the one? Otherwise, it's countered. And ideally, if I do it quick enough, that's it. The only things that would get through it are uncounterable things, like a Supreme Verdict, or this deck was built before Channel. So like Ottawa or that sort of thing gets through.
Yeah.
I had a Rocco list that was designed to assemble 7 druids and Seedborn Muse as quickly as possible with Guiltleaf Archdruid and just steal everyone's lands.
Yeah, nice.
I played Orvar, which, I mean, if it gets going, it can't be stopped. Just making 10,000 islands.
There's a theme of filth coming on here, pretty much, then, isn't there?
Yeah. It was like I was always going to end up in cEDH because I was building these decks that, like, I made a list that was this is sort of where it gets to peak filth and stupidness. I built a list that was Sakashima and Sidar, so it's just Bant, but with a clone in the command zone. And if I liked the pod, I was tutoring for Grand Arbiter and making copies of that. Sorry, if I didn't like the pod,
if you like the pod, my goodness.
Yeah, if I did like the pod, then I'd just make copies of Risen Reef. It was fine. But yeah, no, there was constant filth being churned out. Yeah, and I have the Elementals deck, and that is the only sort of 4-3-2 or 1 deck that is physically built now. The rest are in shells, because there's not much point in me. There's not much point in me ever playing them, because I don't particularly know where they sit in the bracket. They're not cEDH. They just probably make like power level 4 games absolutely miserable. That is a brief summary of what goes on in my head when it comes to building non-cEDH decks a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
The worst bit was the Riku list was part of a deck building competition with a friend of mine. They built Riku, I built Riku. We just looked at the command and says, "Oh, we'll just see how we both build it." And they went down the line of obviously just copying things like Terror of the Peaks. And I'm like, "No, you're locked out of the game." Sort of like just casually team a copying, and I'm like, "Nope, you're in prison. Can't do anything."
Hilarious.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not proud of my past, but I own it. It's fine.
Okay, just quickly, 2 things, and I'll just want straight yes or no answers. Have you ever built Tigrid, and have you ever built Infect?
I've never built Tergrid. Someone in my group had played it, and yeah, no, I think there is more stylish ways to ruin a game. Please see the previous decks I've just described.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Infect, no, it's no.
I was hoping you'd go for the holy trinity of the holy filth of the trinity of filth. But
no.
They do. Those the last 2 do really they do endure the salt level, but I still say that infect or poison isn't the problem, it's proliferation. Because actually, if you was to I have a friend in a pod I play with who he always jokes, he sort of says, "Oh no, it's just it's a bit of poison, but there's like no proliferation in it." And we're like, "All right, okay, sure, no worries." Bear in mind it's like Atraxa is the commander, so you're like, so your proliferation, right? And he's just like, no. So, it's not proliferation. We're like, but you're playing Atraxa. You're definitely proliferating. Like, don't give us any of that. But legitimately, he doesn't have that much in there, proliferation, other than the Atraxa. But he blinks it like a filthy son of a you-know-what.
Yeah. Like, obviously, all will be one, obviously, with the addition of toxic counters, which is obviously Infect, but it's based on the toxic count.
Yeah.
And obviously cards like Prologue to Pheresis and Pick Your Poison. There's a selection of cards that just allow you to start the count to 10 without swinging. It's like, yeah. And
generally,
there's an Azuri card that doubles proliferate.
Generally, once you've got them to like free, because a lot of so I think there was cards in that as well. Once they got to can't remember what the mechanic was called. Once it got to 3 or maybe 4 poison, like it opens
Bring the ending.
Yeah, it opens the door for other cards, and before you know it, once you've got 3 of them, you're off to the races and just race.
Corrupted?
I think it
the
was.
Mechanic name? Yeah.
Yeah. So I got that precon, the toxic precon. I was just like, oh, it's just infecting a fancy suit.
Yeah, no, Turgid and Turgid and Infector. No, I got a bit more flavor than that.
Oh, very cool, very cool. Right, we're going to talk about cEDH. So I thought we would probably jump to one of the most notorious, maybe, or well-known.
Seismic.
Yes, yeah, where we could call that as well.
Seismic.
Yeah, we could call it. Yep, we definitely could call it that. So we very recently, had the big bans of last year. You know, that had a massive effect on cEDH as well as the whole world. It tore play groups apart and things like that. And we're obviously talking about the bannings of Jeweled Lotus, Mana Crypts, and Dockside Extortionist. What effects? Oh, sorry. First of all, what were your thoughts on the bans? And secondly of all, what was the repercussions in cEDH? Because the problem is what you normally hear a lot of is Mana Crypt's a bit too fast for, fast mana in EDH, blah, 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 and Dockside, blah, blah, blah. But for you guys, this had a big effect on your format. So what were your thoughts? And then, tell us about the aftermath.
My initial thought was, because I was driving home at the time, and I saw the notification come through from a friend of mine who doesn't even play cEDH, but he keeps an eye on it. And I started driving home faster because I knew the server was going to be a fireball when it was a fireball by the time 20 minutes later by the time I got home. But yeah, the banning, oh boy. I knew you wanted to talk about this. I should have done a bit of prep because this is a wormhole. This is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. On a personal level, I mean, I did have. For some reason I had a Nardu secretly hidden in my Sisay list at the time. So I did lose all 4 cards. And losing Dockside took Sisay down from a tier 3 deck to somewhere in the top 10. I say we were a very dangerous Sisay deck. If Dockside equals 5, we won. Was quite literally the answer to that. And I mean, depending on other situations, it didn't have to be 5. But the repercussions, a lot of obviously what we saw quite a bit was obviously the community being unhappy with the decisions. Obviously due to financial investment. I mean, you'd always underline it with this is a game for fun. You shouldn't try and play the money game.
Agree.
But ultimately it caused a lot of people. I say a lot. Obviously, 3 or 4 sort of considerably sized groups to sort of rile up and attempt to create their own rules committees, that sort of thing, or like the cEDH committees to try and sort of steer us towards our own ban list. Now and I obviously I'm on the European committee. So obviously I won't speak too much because what we discuss in there is sort of private, but we did quite quickly come together and say we aren't going to take any actions. I think we were all quite confident that sort of the communities would understand our decisions, and it was that we were watching it closely. We weren't going to take any drastic actions towards changing anything. And we were going to continue to respect the statement that cEDH is playing EDH at the highest power level. So, and ultimately we respected the changes. And obviously, just as a side tangent, Portugal upped the playtest limit for the event to account for certain decks being killed off. I know that some of them still have legs, but like obviously the initial scare was on decks like Corvold and Dargo, certain decks that needed their commanders turn 1. So it was already struggling, but like Najila a little bit, the potence of losing Jeweled Lotus and Mana Crypt to allow these mono-colored 3-drop or less commanders to just come out, and like Malcolm's to start swinging it. It did affect some decks. Niv Mizzet, for example, the loss of Jeweled Lotus and Dockside, that deck's a goner. So yeah, there was a call to generate our own rule set. There was divide in in my server, in which we did say, look, the rules are the rules. We are going to be following it. Like the online leagues, for example, that we do for a bit of fun. I was like, they will follow the official rule set. So we did pause them just to let the sort of the chaos simmer down. But the community's pushed through fine, I think. I don't think we still joke about the losses of the cards. I mean, I only had one copy of each, so I'm not going to comment on a financial hit because I was never going to sell them.
Yeah, no.
They were my cEDH cards. They were either going to sit in the deck or get banned.
Yeah.
I think it's simmered down now. Obviously, I know a lot's changed with what's obviously taking control of the format. Because obviously there was unfortunate and unjustly rile up from a few people in terms of obviously some of the conduct and obviously comments made towards the rules committee. Not that any of that was needed at all.
Well, we discussed this on the pod already, but I'm sure. Like, so the idea of me asking this was not to open up scabs or anything like that. It was just to get that input from the cEDH. But we've already said this, but I think it's a bit obvious. But if you are the type of person that is going to start private messaging people over their decision from an organization they're in there, particularly of some of the vile and horrible things that are said, they are people that we don't really want in our community. Like, I understand the financial implication, but I actually sit the same as you. I had multiple copies of all these cards, but it's just one of those things. Like, don't get me wrong. I personally don't look at cards and think, there's £20 sitting there. Like, I think of it in terms of the use I'm going to get out of it. Now, I understand that when there's a banning, you technically that use is significantly reduced. But what there is also is if you in a friendly pod that you regularly play with, do you know what you can do? You can sort of say, how about we play post-ban EDH? And you can still play those cards. You know, yes, the value has gone for them, but you're dead right. I'm the same. They're either going to sit in a deck or they're going to sit in a pile to go in a deck. They're not really going to be sold. So I'm totally with you on that in that respect.
But it allowed the resurgence of Tim Thrasios as a deck. Obviously, red was so strong. It still is strong. I still sort of say, obviously, apart from a barrel stuffed Thoracle, obviously Underworld Breach is still the cleanest and best win con in the game. In terms of its well-roundedness, once it's resolved, its ability to protect itself. The implications of the ban, I think it's past now. Obviously, people weren't happy. Certain decks died, but it's the same as any other format. You know, I appreciate obviously I understand at the high level we were kind of like, what do we do now? And it put a lot of us back to the drawing board. But I remember a couple of comments in again the sort of the private European server saying it's 48 hours. The community are now back to the drawing board, deciding what direction to take the decks. I do miss all of the cards. Dockside was an issue. As one of the best Dockside utilizing decks, it was an absolute issue. I'll agree with that. But I think the community's moved on fine. I know obviously you can say we're sort of in mid-range hell, and we potentially need other changes to shake it up. But Dockside could go. I don't think Nardu was, obviously I understand from sort of a more casual standpoint, needed to go. I think it was fine in cEDH. But the Jeweled Lotus and Mana Crypt I think could have stayed. But we're moving on with the decisions. You never know. Some of them might come back.
I feel like it was all at once, right?
Yeah,
that was the main pain point. It was all at once, just after they'd been selling them as chase cards. So you, it was just
it was
too ill-timed.
It was kind of the table had got flipped, and we were like, what do we do now?
I mean, I think I still say to this day, I mean, as much as I love Dockside Extortionist, you are right. It's easy to abuse. It's easy to gain a significant advantage from it. And it probably was the card out of the lot that probably deserved it the most. I think where a lot of the anger come from, arguably it could be the financiers, who know. But I think if they would have just sort of said, right, Dockside's getting it, we're keeping an eye on Jeweled Lotus and Mana Crypt, that would have made people to go that if they really cared about them the monetary value of it, they would have pushed it on. But more importantly, I think people would have gone, whoa, okay, they're keeping an eye on fast mana. Okay, it's fine and dandy. Although they do always overlook Soul Ring, which always makes me chuckle, but it's what it is.
You can't make every precon illegal.
No, I know. I know. Look, for the record, I like Soul Ring. I like it. You know, I don't have any issues with it. But yeah, I just thought I'd be interested because obviously we have discussed these bans in terms of EDH, but to you guys, it had the biggest effect because they are the most powerful cards, and so it was interesting to have that from your perspective.
It did mean, and I mean, obviously, again, I can dive into this quite differently because obviously we're currently now. People are discussing obviously the enchantment clone meta in terms of people are running copy enchantment and mirror made to snipe Ristics and One Rings and Smothering Tides, but it removed for a period. I feel like we're all of a sudden back on the same amount because we're all trying to copy each other's stuff. But obviously there was a drop in clones for a few months. You know, it's granted obviously if you still want to copy your One Rings, you're still keeping your Metamorphs, but like Phantasmal Image is long gone, Flesh Duplicates long gone. In most decks. You know, there was certainly a card density change in terms of what the decks were trying to do because everyone was running every clone, hoping there was a red deck in the pod that was going to put a Dockside down. It did get to the point where if you played Dockside and didn't win, you're probably losing. Because someone else was going to copy it, force you to sack yours, and then they were just going to win. So it did allow for a little bit of deck building diversity, which I think was good.
Yeah, I think that's it's a very fair point. There is generally there within any formats there is, particularly when there's been lots of shake-up, there is an idea of, and it's the same with new set releases. It's almost like a brewer's paradise when you shake things up. I don't always. I like the shake-up to be with release sets more so than mass bannings. Personally, I'm someone that thinks there should be a minimum of bannings. You know, if you release new cards into it, I know Modern Horizons 3. Well, all the Modern Horizons have literally turned modern on their head. You know, so I don't mind that type of shake-up. Let it simmer down, then you decide what needs to be sort of gone and gossiped. But so there is two sides of this story, you know, which really is, you know, and I suppose from my perspective, you know, I know I was in the Discord when you guys were talking about this, and from my perspective, I felt like everyone took it as, oh, like you said, oh well, back to the drawing board. What's this new meta going to look like, and what am I going to take that hopefully is going to break this meta, which is exciting. You know, as a player and as a brewer, surely instead of, I'm going to use like an analogy for like I don't standard at the minute. Like, so there has been, you know, the most powerful deck in standard at the minute. I don't quite know what that is off the top of my head at this moment, but let's just say that is what it is. It's probably
Domain or mono red.
Yeah, exactly. So
everywhere.
When you are looking to produce a deck to go to a competition, in the back of your head, you're thinking, okay, I've either got to run with the big boys and I've got to go for that, or I've got to build an anti whatever that deck may be deck to try and counteract it. Yeah. So I'm sure that happened in cEDH to a certain degree as well, but it must be refreshing to have that mix up. Surely.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I say, I use TNT as the main example. There was less of a demand to run red because it was no longer a case of Dockside wins games.
Yeah.
And obviously, Devoted Druid suddenly became popular again, especially with the printing of Hazel's Brewmaster. So TNT decks are liking obviously that 2-card combo. Eldritch Evolution, sacking the Druid. You have a Hazel's. You're not casting any more spells until you have infinite mana. So yeah, it did add a bit more variety. The Sisay deck suddenly turned to, okay, we need to generate as much mana as possible, as quickly as possible. So, for example, Essica started going into the 99, sort of as another relic of Legends. Enduring Vitality was a great print, actually for a lot of decks. That card is doing way too much work. And the fact that unless you exile it, it comes back and still gives value.
It still does it, yeah. Those cards are good.
Great card, great card for Kinnan. Cryptolith Rights on a body that can eat a piece of removal, and it has been nice. Obviously, it can still delve into the slight mid-range hell that we're currently in, where draws are on the up. But it's been refreshing, and I'm sure another shake-up's inbound. I hope they unbound something interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, talking of unbannings, yeah, there's been touted that Coalition Victory is going to be unbanned. Do you see a future where an 8-mana sorcery will ever see cEDH play? Are there any other unbannings you might want to mix things up?
Coalition Victory, I am confident. Obviously, I preface this by saying if any 5-color deck goes infinite, they can of course just cast it.
Yeah,
and that's it. Resolve a Grand Abolisher, make infinite mana, done.
Yeah.
I reckon if it goes unbanned, I'll put it on the record now. I'll try and get 2 event wins with Coalition Victory in the list. Then if it unbans, I'll make sure if I'm not on Sissy, I'll hop back on it and I'll see if I can get a couple of game wins at an event with it in the list. I can't guarantee it'll be cast. It might get pitched under a Chrome Mox to make it tap for all 5 colors.
Well, why not?
But yeah, why not? No, the serious answer. What was it cost? Is it 8 or 9?
It's 8 mana.
8. Yeah. Wooburg +3. Yeah. It would just be a dead card most of the time. I think ultimately there are just better ways to win. The cost is just absurd.
The problem is you said it to you. Sorry to interrupt. You said it earlier yourself. If you've gone infinite and you've got all the protection in the world of a Grand Abolisher, it doesn't really matter. You're doing your thing anyway, aren't you? Let's be honest.
Yeah. You want your win cons to kind of have text as early as possible. And I mean, getting up to the ideally, if you're having to go infinite, you're just using one of your win cons that don't necessarily need you to go infinite straight away to potentially win. Don't get me wrong. I know I have a friend who a card that I also love, Genesis Ultimatum. He had it in his Krark Thrasios deck, and he did get to copy it like 3 times in a turn at an event, and I think he went on to win the game. And it does, you're looking at the top 15 cards or permanents into play, like it can happen, don't get me wrong. But from a serious sort of tournament answering, no, but either I'll do it or I know someone will watch this and go and prove me wrong.
Watch this space, yeah, exactly.
yeah. I'm gonna get round one Coalition Victoried in May. And I'm gonna delete all my socials.
Yeah.
Anything else unbanned? I as much as I don't think I'd even play it in Sisset at the minute, but it's mainly just because of the convenient colors. I wanted Leovold unbanned as a slight protection draw a card, slight stacks. I mean, I don't like the Narset effect in cEDH, mainly because obviously this was sort of I test ran it like 9 months ago, and you put it down and you shut off 2 other players' draw engines. The other person's just going to send it because no one's drawing anything anymore. So I do kind of consider Narset effects bad, or the 1 draw per turn effects bad. I wouldn't mind seeing Leovold.
You mean you wouldn't want to see Hull Breacher back in? You wouldn't want to see the old classic Time Twister Hull Breacher play?
I packed Hull Breacher the day after it got banned, and I still have it. Like I've sold out of most of my rares, but I do have it. And a Hull Breacher God now. I mean, I need a way to replace my treasures. I don't have Dockside anymore, so I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll pay the slightly more expensive cost. It's fine. Gifts ungiven, maybe. We're sitting pretty with with intuition. Well, just give us gifts. That's fine. 15 mana Emrakul. I'll take that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
mean, not like just 6 is the I guess the reason it's banned for casual, but
there's a few cards that could be unbanned on there. It's whether or not they're being unbanned through all brackets and being assigned a game changer, or whether or not it's like a bracket 5 unban. Who knows? You could.
That'd be interesting.
We could. Yeah, we could spend 2 hours going through the list, absolutely. But yeah, I wouldn't particularly mind if they unbanned anything at this point. Something to shake it up, as long as it's legendary, so I can find me a reason to stay on Sisse. Which is what. There's Caracas. Maybe be a bit spicy. Seen people talking about that one.
Wow, that's a hell of an unban.
And that would be bold.
It is, and it would just ruin like Tymna players' days. Just you want to draw 1 or 2 cards in combat? No, bounce the Tymna.
It's probably
I
cheap
think
because they
it'd be brilliant.
randomly reprinted it in the Masters set as well.
Yeah, yeah. This
Yeah,
has
yeah,
had
so-
it.
Yeah, it's not expensive anymore.
Yeah.
So I'll take Caracas back. I don't. My current commander doesn't really need to swing, so I don't mind. But yeah, no, there's a few things, but I'm happy to sort of sit back and see what happens. I'm down for anything at this point. Yeah, shake things up. That's for certain.
It's interesting again because we normally talk about unbannings in terms of a EDH perspective. So to see and hear that from a cEDH, I mean, Leovold, I mean, I can understand why it was banned in EDH. I do understand, but that's interesting. And actually, you said something really interesting, which was potentially maybe if they was to do an unbanning in bracket 5, but we'll come back onto that a little bit later on because I do want to talk about potentially whether there should be separate ban lists. So we'll touch back on that a little bit later. But that is an interesting concept that I do want to pin down at you. But so I want to talk to you a little bit more about you are obviously the UK tournament organizer. I want to talk to you a little bit more about this. So what does that entail? What does obviously I know it's not your day-to-day job, but what does the day-to-day of that, what does it look like? And also, how did you get into it? Did you just all of a sudden go, you know what, I fancy doing this. I'm gonna sit up on that pedestal and see what happens. Like, talk us a little bit about
that. So I've been watching obviously just general cEDH content. Most nights at the LGS sort of playing higher power would then finish with going back to a mate of mine's, and at this point all of our work routines worked out perfectly, where we would probably get back about 9:15 and we would sit and play 3-player cEDH from 9 till either 3 or 4 a.m.
Oh wow.
Wow.
And it happened every week for over a year, and it was sensational. It was absolutely good fun. And I just remembered sort of watching the content and sort of being, I'll say, not jealous anymore because obviously lots happened, but obviously jealous of what the Americans had. This large scene, lots of events. And I saw a single event advertised in the UK competitive Facebook group from a store in Castleford. And I was like, is that it? And thought, no, we can do better. So I just posted in there saying, hey, looking to bring some like-minded people together to try and get events firing around the UK. Started the Discord 28th of May, so we're coming up on our 2-year birthday, a couple of months away. And slowly but surely, people started joining. And it started off with the Living Realms in Castleford, Huddersfield, and I think one other store. And that was sort of what initially populated the calendar. So that was sort of how it started, and people just started trickling in slowly but surely. The server didn't have much shape. Granted, to be honest, it's still a mess now. But it's fine. It does what it needs to. It grew from there. Obviously, we had people reach out from different parts of the country saying, "Hi, interested in doing this. I'm from here. Can we try it? Over here, over there." And the sort of the process goes, and it has evolved a little bit as I've got a better understanding of also the business on stores. Because I'm probably about to talk about a few things that I've referenced, but obviously some of the community potentially don't quite understand in terms of getting events in certain parts of the country. And it's that the UK is small when we compare it to America.
Yeah.
They host 1Ks, 2Ks, 5Ks, and 10K prize pool events every month. I think we're smaller than California. I think
Probably
something like that, like land mass. And it's that I'll speak to a store owner, and the key to get an event to fire consistently is a local player base. Now there is some of the best friends that I've made through this scene are there's a very dedicated set of traveling players that are sort of dotted around central to north and a little bit of south that you can guarantee seeing them at every event, unless they've got their life's normally ending is the only reason they wouldn't be there. And a local store to be able to fire consistently needs to at least have a couple of pods within their local player base that would be there. And if they don't necessarily have that, I never provide a guarantee to a store that the event will necessarily be successful on the first couple of tries. But it will be very, very hard if you don't have the player base.
Yep.
There needs to be local player base. If they're interacting with the server, people will go and travel. But if you've got 2 to 3 pods that are being provided by people that travel who aren't necessarily available every weekend, because that's the crux, is that I try to go as many as I can, but I can't do them all. Occasionally, life does call on other things, and it's that if a couple of those pods can't make it, if you haven't got the locals, all of a sudden you got a couple of pods. And don't get me wrong, people will sit and play cEDH for the whole day. We just enjoy a good day out. But if you don't have the player base to reinforce the traveling crews, that's when it will struggle. And then obviously that's when the store doesn't make money, and then that's when they necessarily don't want to keep running the events.
Yeah.
And then sort of another perspective is that I use Huddersfield, for example. It's our longest standing event.
That's Chris. That's Halbrand's event, isn't it?
Yes, Halbrand. Yeah, Chris.
He's fantastic for the cEDH scene, but just a straight up lovely guy as well.
Yeah, he's absolutely lovely. I owe quite a bit to him. So for example, the Huddersfield store that's there, obviously they've got the benefit that it's not ran by the store; it's ran by Chris, which is also a burden taken off of the store. They haven't got to dedicate a staff member to the event.
Yep.
Obviously, in the smaller events, Chris will still play. Obviously, if someone is TOing the bigger events, normally they'll just TO it. But the Huddersfield store has enough play space to run 3 decent sized events in one go. So if the event is quiet for a week, they don't mind. They've got other things happening. Yep. They know people will be back at some point, and like the store has singles. So I use that store as an example of sort of the prime example of how the events can go. But it's that I also then double down on the turnout locally needs to be good, because if a store is dedicating their whole play space, so if they've only got space for 30, as opposed to Gemini that could comfortably sit 100. If they are closing their store for this event and expecting a turnout, if the local player base isn't there, it will struggle.
Yeah.
Really, really struggle. So that's sort of a part of the building the relationship with the stores in terms of their expectations. And I am also quite honest with them. And look, your local player base needs to be the big foundation for it.
Well, sorry to interrupt here, but also, so this is something that we've spoke to. We've got a local a group called the Arturo Guild to us, and they are building a community as well. Also, a friend of mine who is starting to build a pauper community within our local area and hosted the RLGS. The reason why I bring this up, because we had a little conversation about this, which was effectively, if you're going to host a pauper night, you need to host a pauper night. It can't just be who's in, great, we've got 4. Okay, well, we'll miss this week, blah, blah, blah. It has to be every single week, because what then happens is, so they've already had a couple of nights. The first one, which was not Tuesday gone, Tuesday beforehand, they had some all right numbers. But yesterday's one, it built up, and I think they had a decent amount of number. And as soon as more people start hearing about it, I had 2 other people from a completely different community sort of say, "Oh, I hear Langdon's doing pauper nights like on a Tuesday. Is that a regular thing?" Yeah, it is. Great. I love pauper. I've been looking for a place to, and then you build it and it establishes, and then you're in the position when you've basically got between 10 and 30 people attending every week. That is the position of for cEDH. That's what you kind of want. The local player base that props it up, with then everyone else from around the country coming together, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I can only do so many announcements before people tell me to shut up. And I can only push so many events. Obviously, the calendar is on there. We get the links from the stores. The information is on there as soon as I can get it. I chase them as frequently as I can. Obviously, I completely respect that these people are running their own businesses, and there's other formats and other TCGs for them to sort. But yeah, it's being realistic in terms of the local player base needs to support it. And that then also comes on to like event frequency. So like the most established events, they can run monthly. For example, the Huddersfield, they don't mind if it's quiet, they can go monthly. But at the minute, I'm pushing most stores to either do bi-monthly or quarterly. It's the best way to do it. It sort of gives the events a little bit more grandeur and gives them sort of a month or 2 to practice at their local nights on spell table, and then come back and hit it again. And with more notice and a slightly reduced frequency, you'll then get more of the traveling crews because they've got more notice and they know it's happening. It makes the days a bit better, unless, say, again, Huddersfield, unless it's in a good location and everyone travels to it. That event will be self-sufficient and obviously I sort of leave Chris to sort that himself. But yeah, a lot of the events are relatively self-sustaining now. I'd sort of try and chat to most store owners every couple of weeks, sort of after an event. I mean, some of them are on the ball and they've got sign-up links and dates sorted well in advance. But yeah, it's just keeping in touch. Ideally, getting to most of the events that I can. I do work some weekends now, so I don't get to them all. Obviously, it's just keeping on top of obviously any issues that arise. See, we're slowly developing our rule set. So obviously, it's working with the judges to make sure that when issues do arise, because we have found holes in the rules. They're not currently perfect. So it's being able to fill those holes as well.
Sure.
But yeah, no, it's getting there. It doesn't take too much time. I normally try and kind of condense the admin into a day on a weekend if I'm not traveling to an event. If I'm traveling to an event, I'm not getting much done on that weekend. Especially if it's been a sort of 4 to 6 hour round trip.
Sure.
And it's been a long day. So normally it's crashing on the Sunday. It's mainly just keeping in touch with the stores. I don't particularly, unless people come to me regards a location, I'm not particularly out hunting for locations at the minute. I think apart from Scotland, there is a gap to fill up there, and a little bit more towards the east, sort of past the East Midlands, not all the way necessarily over to like Norwich and stuff. Back in that sort of gap above London, there's a gap to fill there.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I'm quite happy with the coverage. I think we're at 21 locations that are running events at some sort of frequency now, and that's it's kind of getting to the point where I want it to. We hit a bit of a boom last year, and I did sort of have to say to stores, I was like, we need to wait for the server to grow. Right, that everyone wants to be involved. The community's not big enough. If everyone tries to do monthly, we're gonna start hurting each other's event attendances.
Yeah.
And everyone did respect that. I completely appreciate. I'm a random person who's decided to start this project. And at all times, I try and respect that these stores are their own businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But I sort of know how the community, or what the community wants in terms of event frequencies, that sort of stuff. So if we are going in the wrong direction, it's sort of a hang on, we've got too much clustered. But to be honest, we're starting to push the limits. Like I say, a couple of weeks ago, we had 3 events on the same day, and
wow.
I think there's about 90 of us playing around the country, 2 qualifiers and 1 winner duel, and it all went very, very well.
Nice.
That's I've rambled a bit there, but it's not too bad. It's starting to become self-sufficient, and I'm starting to work on smaller projects like playmats, sleeves, hoodies. Because I quite like us to have a bit of coordination for Munich this year as well.
Oh yeah. So talking about Munich, so have you got any other upcoming events as well?
For qualifiers for Munich.
Yeah. So is the qualifier, because Munich is the championships, is it?
Yeah. So the Munich. So the Germans have got it for this year. We've got obviously excluding myself, qualified due to position. I'm incredibly grateful for it. We've got 30 tickets to give out, which are we've given out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 have been allocated so far, and there's 23 more to go.
So is this sorry to jump in? So this you're basically talking about a building up towards European champions, but you're talking about hosting a UK player base that can then go together and compete for these passes that then it makes them eligible to then go to Munich effectively, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we've been I requested, and actually the amount I requested was based on how many of us actually just showed up to Lisbon last year. Obviously last year there was a mixture of qualifier and public sale, and obviously there was a slight oversell, but ultimately there was 30 of us out there, so I requested 30 again. I don't think that was me being greedy at all. But the 30 covers us. Obviously, the event's going to be bigger this year. It still leaves room for other countries. I know the Germans have had 50 tickets, so I didn't think I was asking for too much when I said 30. But it's also being allocated at a nice rate. I say the 7 have been handed out, and there are going to be a selection of qualifiers to continue through the rest of the year with the final 4 tickets. So there's 19 left to hand out before Nationals in September, and then the final 4 will be allocated there. I imagine there might be a bit of drop down. If someone does win a ticket and then goes on to win another, it does just fall down the bracket. But yeah, it's going to be an exciting year. So Lisbon was incredible. I think Munich's going to be just as good.
The one thing I was lucky enough to attend. So you were sort of talking about Nationals as in the UK Nationals, lovely known as Benfest, if I remember rightly. Which
yeah, I don't know how it started, but I'm running with it now.
I love it. Personally, I think it's fantastic. It works really, really.
Maybe you should book a venue in Benfleet as well, and just roll with it.
That'd work amazing. But obviously, so like last year, you were very kind to allow me to come along to Benfest and sort of come and observe and get involved, and obviously the same again for the European Championships. And I really loved I enjoyed cEDH beforehand anyway, but getting involved with you guys made me really kind of go, do you know what? Like, I really love this. I love the format. I love getting involved with you guys, and I love the fact that you're winning these tickets for a bigger purchase. Excuse me,
Yeah.
Instead of just, I'm going to go win a jewel. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with winning a jewel land or a serialized card. Like, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I really love the idea there's a bit more foundation, i.e. you can win this ticket. It gets you entry into the next step up, which is effectively the European Championships, obviously this year in Munich.
Yeah.
And I love that because actually, you'll have that going on in Portugal, France, Germany, all these sort of other countries. And I love that idea that you get the people that have been winning in their countries combinating together for the European Championships. I love it. Yeah. And Lisbon was incredible. Like, it was some of the best Magic I've ever seen. As much as you're very kind about what you sort of said at the beginning, I loved every single second of watching you in those sort of top 16s. The gameplay was incredible. The spell slinging was, to me, it's the essence of what cEDH is. I would implore anyone, if you have any interest in high power EDH or cEDH, go attend one of these events. Just go get involved. Obviously, we'll leave links into the cEDH UK server, so you'll be able to find your dates from there. I'm sure there'll be stuff on the socials as well. Just go and get involved because the community is fantastic and it is so much fun. Absolutely so much fun.
Yeah, the community is great. Don't worry, it is a learning curve. That's for certain. So you have turning a 4-player format into a competitive. It's a learning curve, but when you're playing with the right people, even if you're not always winning, it is still fun. The learning the process of it. Because thankfully, apart from a small selection of decks, we only play with like 200 different cards outside of lands.
The thing that I definitely noticed is that look, they were competitive events, and we all understand everybody wants to win when you're playing a competitive event. But the one thing that I always notice is there's a lot more politicsing in cEDH than I ever knew before I started to attend like Benfest, and I loved it. But the one thing I always really noticed is there may be the competitive juices gets flowing. There's definitely no negativity, but there's obviously people want to win. But I tell you what, when it's all done and dusted and the win has been established, the hand is shaken straight away, and everybody goes back to the community that they are. They come together, and it's just like, oh, you nearly had me on this, and blah, blah, blah. Like, I didn't see a single bit of saltiness or anything like that. It's sometimes associated with competitive play, not just cEDH. I didn't see any of that, and I personally, I think that was more of an exposure of what the community is, more so than what people sort of say it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not a toxic community
No,
at all.
no.
I can very much sort of relate to what you just said in terms of the relationship between players. Say, so there's a couple of them that'll be watching this and they know who they are. We play a hell of a lot. I would refer to it as rivalries at this point. I know the last time I beat them. I know the last time I lost to them, and I can play out how a lot of those games went in my head quite often. And when we are sat there, absolutely, the tension is high. We still have a laugh and a joke, but there is a level of professionalism and respect that we are good at piloting our decks, and we need to be on top of our game if we do want to beat that person.
Mhm.
But when it's all said and done, hugs at the start of the event, hugs at the end of the event, it's all chill. They are just fun days out, as I sort of referenced a little while ago. It's all we want, fun days out.
That's what anybody really wants from it, really, let's be honest. Okay, so a bit of a big one here, but how would you describe the cEDH scene in the UK, and then what are the differences between the scene in the UK and, say, the rest of the world? For argument's sake, Europe and America's got a big following. Like, are there any differences? And if they are, what are those, and how big are they as a rule of thumb?
Yeah, so I used to discuss quite a bit, or I used to see discussion about the American scene. This was more pre-Dockside ban, that it was more turbo heavy.
Okay.
The European scene, it's kind of been hard to compare. It kind of feels like it all does kind of meld together a little bit. There's still quite a range of play styles. The UK side, whilst we're growing, we seem to love our politics. We talk a bit too much. I compare it to, obviously, I believe it's the rule set over in Japan that's 60-minute rounds, minimal talking, and we're just about scraping by at 80 minutes. We came down from 90 because we were giving people too much time.
Sure.
I think we were questioning 80 while we still had docksides. So 80 without dockside is a bit tight, but we're doing fine. Some games still end in 5 minutes. The comparison, it's not something. I don't play against the Americans. I'm in a server with a selection of them, but I haven't had a huge amount of game time against them, to be honest.
Okay.
I hear comments get made, and we see tournament breakdowns. The meta is there. It's not too different to ours. Obviously, there's certain decks that, with us being still a smaller community, there's certain decks that do crop up a bit more. It's easier to affect the meta when the meta is a bit smaller, if you get enough people to try and shift it.
Sure.
I'm not entirely sure how best to sort of answer the differences at the minute.
Okay.
There's still quite a lot up in the air. The European side, I wish I could comment from Lisbon, but as you know, my Lisbon event was an emotional roller coaster, and I can't remember much more other than the games. It will certainly be something that I'll probably be able to provide a better answer after Munich.
Okay.
We'll see how the stats lie after the bans, but I think the cEDH is. I know Japan has sort of the wilder deck list that we occasionally see cropping up. I think that's where we saw the Lumra mono green list crop up from. I think it's the first time we saw the mono green bear combo with the lands crop up out of nowhere. And
that is interesting.
yeah, I believe like down in Texas, there's I think it was the first time I heard it was the Valgavoth, not Valgavoth, it's the mono black boast creature, the 2-drop that searches its library.
Oh.
It's like Valskoy or something.
Yeah,
something like that.
It boasts, fetches Adnors, casts Adnors, and puts its entire deck in its hand because its deck CMC is lower than its life total. The meta at the minute, I haven't had a huge amount of look at it. I still think it's a little bit up in the air. There's so much scope, but I occasionally look at EDH top 16, and it's sort of where I imagine it to be. Blue Farm, TNT, Tivit, Sisay, Rogsai. Yeah, it's I haven't had too much time to look into it. I don't think they can be too much different between the countries.
Mhm.
I think the main difference, and I'd have to be out there to comment on it, is the gameplay etiquette. I know obviously there's rule set differences, but I imagine more the demeanor of how you play. Like I hope the Europeans are ready for a Yap Fest when they come over for Benfest in September, because we do not shut up. People need to call a judge a bit more, even on me, but it's fine. Yeah, I think the meta is quite well blended across the continents.
The one thing that I noticed was there was talk about the differences politicsing. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it between the UK and the Europeans, or is it the Europeans and the Americans? Where if you basically in the UK, we could be sitting in a pod right here with a fourth person. You could show me a card and sort of say, this is what I've got to deal with this problem. What can you do with this? Whereas, is it I can't remember which way it is, but in another country, the general consensus is if you're showing information to one person, you show it to everyone.
Yeah, I can't remember where the Americans are currently on.
Yeah,
and they work with a few different rule sets. Obviously, you've got the top deck addendum. You've got certain events that are ran non-playtest friendly, so they've got a bit of like the SCG cons, I believe. Obviously, they're slightly Wizards affiliated, possibly.
okay.
I'm not entirely sure on the American side, but yeah, the Portugal rule set, the term I use was show one, show all.
Yep.
If I wanted to, if you were sending it and I wanted to reveal a card to the recording bot, I would have to show it to all four of us. Whereas in the UK, we're not a fan of that. I was I'll die on my hill on this one. Because I've said it's the one thing that I have no intention of changing, and the way that you politic changes drastically if you have to reveal an answer to an opponent, because otherwise they just don't send it.
Yeah.
If they know what the definite answer is, or they might just send it anyway, because they're like, oh, I can beat that. Yeah, we're much more of a fan of the hidden politics and being able to show a card to one person, and not potentially taint the game for the person that's in the best position.
Mhm.
And that's how we're going to keep it for the foreseeable future.
Yep, I think that's not a bad.
Yeah.
I like it like
It
that.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it makes sense because like you say, if you say, well, I've got this counter spell, and the person who's winning, obviously, normally you're going to have to try and team up against them, right? So you're not really going to want to show them.
The thing I love about that is me and Ben may be sitting here thinking you're about to send it, Dom. But Ben could lean over to me and show me in Ireland. Ben could lean over and show me in Ireland and be like, okay, I think we can deal with this. This is what I've got. Blah blah blah. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like that sort of like I kind of like a little bit of that. I mean,
a little tricksy.
Yeah, a bit tricksy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
but equally in those type of scenarios, like if that was me, for argument's sake, if you two were showing cards, me personally, I always just think to myself, well, let's see it then. And I would try and do it because
let them have it.
Yeah, exactly. Let them have it because I think it's because I'm quite prepared to do that. I'm quite prepared to be a bit like, well, you never know. And always one of my favorite is that like, oh, does this does this resolve? And you'd be like, yeah, this time it resolves. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Plant that little seed.
Here's one you'll like, and I don't think a lot of people knew this happened. We had seat 1 Rogsai, seat 2 Mion Sisse, seat 3 Magda, seat 4 Timna Thrasios. The Rogsai player, Elijah, top 2 Rogsais in the country, very scary. He'd just wheeled, and he'd cast a Gataxian probe targeting me. And I said, don't waste that. Target him, the Magda player, I'll show you my hand. He goes, go on then. So I handed him the fresh 7 that I'd just drawn. The Magda player goes, I'd rather you have more information. Target James on TNT. Magda player hands his hand over to Elijah to look at. Elijah just paid 2 life to cast a Gataxian probe and got to see 21 cards.
Bargain.
Through a political state that was started from me because I knew we were in a very sticky situation. Elijah and myself were behind. I was like, I no, don't target me. No point here. Look over there. And as a result, Elijah got to see 21 cards for 2 life on a Gataxian probe.
See, I like that. I mean, I like that. I do.
Yeah.
Play that any day of the week.
Yeah, Jay's famous for it on Tim Nakadama. He knows his deck can be scary at certain points and can win in an instant. He will at times just put his hand down. He'll reveal it to the whole table and go, I'm just going to sit here until I draw something else. Stop looking at me. It doesn't happen a huge amount, and it's normally done by the players who have played a lot more events, and we're just happy to go, well, there you go. That's what I've got. Deal with it. Or you'll see that I'm not something that needs to be dealt with. Because it is difficult. People can miss threat assess, and sometimes if someone is really looking, and it is a learning curve. I completely appreciate that mistakes can be made not by piloting your own deck, but by targeting the wrong thing.
Yep.
The famous term is removing the stacks piece and losing. Like, don't remove the stacks piece if you're not going to send it, because you're probably not going to get another turn. Someone else is probably waiting for that stacks piece to leave,
and they've got it. You've just handed them an option.
Yeah, you've just opened the window for them.
I've had that. Yeah, especially while playing the new Elish Norn that blanks, ETBs.
Yes,
it's like everyone's going, "Oh, it's so terrible," but all you're really doing is stopping the green player from winning.
Yeah. So it was something that was referenced is again, using Jays as an example because I know it has almost came up once. His Academy Rector needs a sack outlet. Someone was playing the original Elish Norn, the -2/-2.
Oh yeah.
And if he had drawn it and resolved it, he would have won on the spot without casting another spell.
Wow.
And it's don't remove the stacks piece unless you're ready to go, because it will bite you in the butt very quickly.
It's not just there for the person that cast it. A lot of the time, it's there in place for other people as well.
Yeah, it's also responsibly not playing a stacks piece, which removes one player who just already wasn't ahead. They're less inclined to then help you stop someone who was actually ahead.
Yeah, it's really funny. I've always found it quite funny how people react to those type of things. I can't remember where it was, but I can remember playing a Yishan against someone that was playing basically like a graveyard deck, and they were like, "What the fuck, man? You've just stopped me playing the game." And I'm like, "No, I've stopped you winning the game." And he was just like, "How am I going to win?" And you're like, you look at his graveyard and you're like, "Don't give me that. Like, don't give me that." Do you know what I mean? And there's always those type of people, but yeah, sometimes. But it's also, I think it's also important to sort of say, at a competitive level, even at a competitive level, it's very difficult when you're deep in the tank and you're so focused on trying to do what you need to do. Sometimes it is easy to make the wrong decision of the player to target, or even the piece to remove.
Absolutely, but that's why we do have a you fucked up. You used the F-bomb before me, so now I'm going to use it. You can put that back in your hand. Quite literally, if someone casts a spell, and I see it and I'm like, big issue, put it back in your hand. There is a rule that is in place that if someone does do a big mess up, so the game isn't ruined, you can, if another player says it, you can just put it back in your hand. Spell was never cast, that's it. We do have that, just because mistakes do happen. Obviously, if someone's like, no, I want to cast it, it's like, all right, fair enough. But if someone does cast something, it's like, that's a big red flag. It's like, oh, you shouldn't have cast that. Then, we do sort of have a slight way to protect it as long as it's noticed quickly, just to sort of allow those mistakes to be unwound, just so the game isn't suddenly tainted and over.
Yeah, exactly. Particularly when it's either it's a difficult one to navigate, because in that scenario, the person, it's very easy for at least two, if not three people to be like, "Are you joking? Like, you should be this," or blah, blah, blah. But also, like, legitimately in that person's head. I mean, I've been guilty of this. I've been like, "Oh, I want to get rid of this." And they're like, "Well, what about this?" And it's like, no. I want to go with this. Unfortunately, I am a type of person that I don't mind being told if I'm doing something wrong, but something that I always puts my defenses up. If when someone says to me, "Why are you targeting me? I'm not the threat." I'm always a bit like, why are you saying that? Because the amount of times that's that
need to do next when they say
yeah, exactly. These are normally the people that will politics you away from doing something you're going to do, and then all of a sudden they're off. They're sending it in the next turn, and you're like, Great. I goddamn knew it.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean?
Your opponents do not have your best interest at heart.
Yeah, exactly.
That is sort of something we. And lying isn't against the rules. It's I would recommend if anyone comes into this community, please do not lie. Because otherwise no one will ever listen to anything you ever say again.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I know a liar is sat in my pod, this is me talking from a player's perspective, I am not listening to you. That is it.
Yeah.
That is unfortunately the strict part of it. Once you lie once, that's it.
Yeah.
We joke saying you get a lie a year and it resets at the Euros. No, you can't. If people want to lie, absolutely go for it. But you best be prepared. You may as well turn up. You may as well turn up to each event on Rogsai and just keep trying to send it. So you go to the mid range, no one's politicking with you. It's a little bit cutthroat, but the format is based on trust.
Yeah, exactly, and that's exactly what I was going to say. There is a difference between I'm bluffing and I'm outright lying to you. And do you know what I mean? And it's all in the words, isn't it? So
yeah,
what you can normally find is there's a difference between I don't have a counter spell and I can't counter this. Like there is a big difference, because you could be telling the truth. They could be casting a creature and you've got a negate. But also they could be, if you stand there and you say, I can't counter this card, and then the next turn or two spells cast later after not drawing, you pull out a counter spell, someone's gonna be like, bullshit. Like, do you know what I mean? There is a big difference.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, I think if you was to say to the pod, you don't have to say anything, but if you felt like you needed to, you could sort of say, I don't feel like this is for what this is needed for. So the one thing I tend to find is as you know, because I built it while I sat next to you, is I am playing Kinnan. That's my deck. Now, part of the reason why I'm playing Kinnan is because I don't always know the key cards, the key lines, and the things like that. For me, Kinnan, I'm doing my thing, and I'm going to try and protect my thing. I will get involved as and when I feel like I need to, but that's the way I like to try and play Kinnan. It's not always the best, it's not the most politicsy, but it's the way I feel comfortable until I learn more and I can establish myself a little bit more. But what I can always tend to do is I might sort of say, well, look, I do have some interaction, as the person that's the least experienced in this pod, potentially, like say like a Lisbon, when I played a few games with you guys, I'm quite happy to sort of say, look, I do have some interaction, but convince me to use it, because I'm not quite convinced this. I'm trying to think of a good example. This card that you're really, really worried about that doesn't really affect me, why should I use my resources on this that's actually I know is going to turn your deck off? So
you won, right?
There's a few famous terms community famous terms that we hear at quite a lot of events now. So if the player order, if I was asking you to interact, Alex, but it's my turn next, you'd be like, it's not my turn I'm fighting for. It is my turn next. And it's like, why should I help you get to your turn?
Yeah.
Are you promising not to win in your turn? And if I say no, you pass priority, because you know I'm sending it in my turn. The other famous one is if someone says, I'm not winning this turn, you need to double down and get some more information out of them. Because I can say that in Sisse. I can go infinite, lock you out, put down to fairy, go to the next person's upkeep, and then kill you all. I said I wasn't winning this turn. I won in someone else's turn. I haven't lied there.
And exactly. And this is why it's all in the wording. And this is why, so look, I think we've all fallen foul of this, particularly when you're newer players, or if you're really in the tank and someone offers you that deal, you need, like a good lawyer, you need to read those small print, because the devil is in the detail. And the amazing thing might be exactly what you've just said there. I won't win in my next turn. But it's all right. I'm going to win in a player befores me because I've got it all in hand. I'm ready to rock and roll. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, ready to go at any moment.
Yeah,
it's difficult, and I preface a little bit that if people come into the format, the politics side and sort of some of the stuff that we spoke of may seem as like, how do I begin to understand this? How do I know when to start using it? It's, to be honest, I wouldn't worry about that for now.
No.
Learn your deck.
Yep.
Just learn your deck. Mulligan. Know your lines. There is sort of an expectation that at an event it's sort of be somewhat proficient on your deck to keep the games flowing.
Mhm.
We are under a time limit in a 4-player game, so we kind of need decisions to be made at a nice pace.
Yep.
Don't particularly worry about the politics. There's a lot of nice people in the community that will probably talk to you about it a bit more after the game.
Yep.
The why was this said here, why was that said there, and most situations are explainable. They just possibly can't be explained during the middle of the game.
Yeah.
It's the politics side is a great side of it. It can just sometimes it does go a bit too far sometimes. It happens, takes up too much time of a game. It does get to a point where if the conversation is not going anywhere, someone needs to call a judge who will come over, tell everyone to shut up and carry on.
Yeah. So
But
we saw that at Lisbon actually a couple of times where there was one player that was particularly. I'm just trying to think. It must have been the round after I watched you. There was quite it's quite a vocal player that he was basically telling the other three what the next person was going to do. And don't get me wrong, like he called it right sometimes, but it got to the point where there was quite a quiet, meekish guy sitting there. He was just doing his thing. And it got to the point where actually he done exactly what you just sort of said. He called a judge and he sort of said to the judge, he says, look, this guy's trying to play all our decks all at the same time. He said, just stand there and listen. He said, we just want to crack on. I said, I've been sat here waiting for my turn for a good 15, 20 minutes now. This guy keeps talking about what this is going to do, what he's going to do, and what I'm going to do. I said, but more importantly, I want everyone to, put spells on the stack so we can all interact and we can move this game forward. Because this has not moved forward in 20 minutes and we're getting close to round. And to be fair, and the judge acted really good because he sort of said, right, okay, basically I think, excuse the terminology, I think he effectively sort of said, I'm not going to pick anyone out here, but I'm effectively going to say table warning. I'm going to stand here and I'm going to watch the pace of play. And then the next time this dude sort of like spoke up, you could almost tell the judge was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? Okay. Well, you need to do something about this. You either, instead of trying to convince these guys, you either need to pass priority or you need to put something on the stack. Yeah. You need to do one thing or the other. Because it's amazing. Because all of a sudden, like this guy would say his piece. No, you need to do something. You need to do a game action or you need to pass priority. Blah, 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 blah. No, you need to do pass priority. It is amazing how frequently he was presenting that he had something to put on but wanted to see if anyone else did beforehand, gathering the information. And I could see it, and I think we all see it. And this is what the sort of quiet guy was sort of saying. He's like, we all know what's going on here. He's wasting so much of our time by trying to play this game. Judge, can you interdict? And that's one thing that was really good to see. And to be fair, after the game was done and dusted, he went, no, you called me on my tactic, and I'll hold my hands up to it. There was no lying, there was no dishonesty. It's a competition at the end of the day. It's something he can do, but equally, the judge can be called at any point. Exactly what you just sort of said.
Yeah, he was bending the rules.
Yeah, I think that's
to be honest. If it was the round you were watching after me, obviously that's top 16.
Exactly. And I know there was a bit more leeway with that as well.
Yeah, if whoever wins that game is securing at least 2 dual lands. So I'd be pulling out every trick in the book at that point as well.
Understandable.
So, but yeah, the politics and the judging it's a whole another world, and it's hard to judge. I've got huge respect for the judges that work with me at events. They do a huge task on that, or they have a huge task on their hands every time because it's a little bit of the unknown because it is a 4-player political format. So. Yeah, no, huge credit to those guys that do judge some of the events.
100%. Dom, why don't you fire us up with another question, mate?
Yeah, so how has the cEDH scene evolved over the past few years and where do you see it going?
So, I suppose I can only go back as far as I was involved in it. So we're starting from May 23. There wasn't much of a scene here. I think there was an attempt to do a couple of events a couple of years prior up in Leeds. I hear people sort of referenced, but the server started in May 23. Now in April 25, we've gone from no members up to now over 700. The European Committee has grown. It started in November 23, with then obviously Lisbon in November 24. That committee was started, and we had that first qualification year. I think this committee is only going to grow as other countries gain their community leads. to come and join and provide a country with more structure as the years go on. I say we've got sort of definitive leads for the UK. I'm somewhat overseeing Ireland this year, planning to sort of let them become a bit more self-sufficient next year. They sort of started speaking up a little bit after ticket allocation, so I've managed to secure them 4 tickets so that they can get some representation. So the Ireland will be over there. We've got Finland, Spain, Portugal, Germany, Belgium, Italy, Slovenia. There's I think it's someone from Croatia in there now as well. It is growing.
Wow.
And I think with us continuing, and we all are sort of on the same mindset, we're in agreement on most things. I see the slight differences will just crop up when we all host our own Euros as the years go on.
Yeah.
But we are in agreement on most things, which is absolutely brilliant. We all just want the format to keep growing. I think as the format grows, I think we as a group will continue to lead. I don't think we're in any sort of position where there is a need for competition. We're all working with the community. None of us are particularly here to make a truckload of money. We're all just pushing it forward, and it's just going to continue growing as especially some of the smaller countries evolve.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I say smaller countries, it used to be us, and I now know we are the largest cEDH dedicated Discord in Europe. The only one that's bigger is in terms of membership is Slovenia, but that's across multiple TCGs. So I know in terms of, not that it's a competition, but just in terms of like the community growth, we're now bigger than Portugal, who are 3 years older than us as a community. We've caught the Spanish, and we don't appear to be slowing down, which is brilliant. And I'm still having fun. I'm not planning on stopping this anytime soon. As Deadpool said to Wolverine, it'll be till I'm 90. I'll still be here.
Did you pick up the Deadpool secret lair?
Yes, I did. I sat over I think it took over an hour. Someone sent it to me. I thought it was April Fool's. I didn't look, and they were like, "Did you pick it up?" I was like, "What do you mean? Did I pick it up? It's real." And then it sat there with my phone, just watching the little man walk across the screen for over an hour. But yeah, no, I picked up a foil one. I needed a Deadly Rollock. I've never played a deck that's needed a Deadly Rollock for some reason.
Interesting.
Card.
Yeah, it's a very good card.
Like, yeah, I never ran it in CISA. I had other removal, which never really picked it. But yeah, no, I have now picked one up. The Blasphemous Act, I have seen someone running. Charlie, a player up in sort of the Huddersfield area, he runs it in his blue farm list as his sort of one-off board wipe. I could see use for it. But yeah, I just wanted the Rollock, and it was a Deadpool secret lair. Deadpool's a Rakdos legend. I'll probably find a reason to run it in CISA alongside the Coalition victory. In a couple of months' time.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, the community is growing. It's unsanctioned events for the most part, and obviously, I'm sure we're going to come and touch on to obviously that and obviously playtest cards shortly. But it's just going to keep growing, and with the group that are currently taking the lead, and the coordination, and there were some sponsorships last year, and there will be going forward. It's all going to grow. The format is booming. The increase in sort of social presence as well from a lot of the communities. I know it's something we're sort of slowly trying to work on. Is again getting rid of that stigma that we're a toxic, salty format.
Yeah.
We're one of the most chill.
Oh,
absolutely, without a doubt.
I can back you up on that. I mean, I'm very lucky enough to sort of put myself into lots of different communities of Magic the Gathering. I'm very lucky in that respect. So I don't know everything. I've not seen every corner of the globe, but I have personally found the cEDH one of the most inviting, friendliness, and least salty. Actually, like I sort of said, just come back to a point you were saying earlier. The games I played at Lisbon with you guys and with the community that were there, there was a general consensus that I play cEDH, but I'm still new to the level that you guys are at. So when it comes to the hard politicking, it's almost like I was excluded, but not out of disrespect of me or we don't need to worry about him. they just knew. Look, these are guys that have played together for a long, long time, so they knew how they can play against one another. And when something was said my direction, it'd be like, "Don't listen to him; he's full of crap." Well, do you know what I mean? All that sort of stuff, which was really good. But to have, to drag someone in for that, I mean, this all started. I pinged you a message, said I'd love to come down and get involved, and you were like, "Absolutely love to have you down there." And it's one of those things where the welcoming was so good, and I've come across many people even at Command Fest, and we've talked about it. They're like, "Yeah, we're hoping to go to the cEDH event. Are you coming?" Blah blah blah. Yeah, we can't wait. The community, from my perspective, definitely feels like it's building, and it's such a positive place. Like, I can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah, the Command Fests have been good fun as well. Kind of just taking over the free play area. We're hopefully by May we're going to have some hoodies or at least something with cEDH UK on so that we'll stand out in the free play area at Edgbaston. We're looking forward to that. That'll be good fun.
I read on one of the UK content creators servers that there was some interest in cEDH at Command Fest. So I didn't see what a reply was back to that, but hopefully there will be some. And I'll definitely be bringing a deck along. Yeah,
so I am aware of the discussions. Francois actually happened to be at the We Buy Any Card qualifier, and I had a good chat with him. So I am aware of developments between us and Axion. It's early days. They do want to work on it. They want to increase their format scope. It's just about how we meet with obviously Command Fest being sanctioned.
Yep.
And conversations are ongoing, and we're hoping to have something, potentially a test run at Edgbaston, and then potentially looking at something a bit bigger in the future. So the relationship is building.
Amazing. I mean, that's how all these things, they start small and they build. Yeah. I'm glad that is starting. Just one last thing before we move on to the next part. So obviously we've said about where we can sit moving forward. We've been talking about how there's been like a UK connection and building towards a European. Do you think there will ever be like a cEDH World Championships, which incorporates the world effectively?
Yeah, so there was a message that was sent out from Kakar, the head of the Portugal scene. He did email Top Deck. Now, see, Top Deck have stepped away from the tournament scene now. They're purely just software due to, obviously, lots of reasons. But ultimately, they stepped back from the public image in the community. But a tweet was sent saying top 16 of Lisbon versus top 16 of the Top Deck Championship Series.
Yeah.
And the answer was possibly. Now, see, things have changed over in America. There's been a bit of a shift in terms of the main cEDH communities. But I believe possibly.
Nice.
There is a chance. Now, the prize pool would need to be huge to make it respectful for enough of either one side or the other to fly across.
Yeah, of course.
It needs to be absolutely huge.
They're not flying over for well, probably even for a dual land. Do you know what I mean?
No.
A cruise ship.
Yeah. There needs to be a lot. Yeah, actually, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, that does.
There wasn't there like a magic cruise?
It was a magic cruise.
Yeah, there was a magic cruise. Yeah.
Think of it.
Yeah. Like if we could maybe get some agreement for it to be back and forth, or maybe because you don't want to disrespect the circuits that we currently have in place.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
For example, the Euros. So you'd want to keep it away from November because we'll want to keep the Euros going, and whatever America's got, you'd potentially need to look at like spring, and maybe look at, I don't know, every 2 years, every 3 years, maybe every 4 years. Like obviously the World Cup's every 4 years, for example, and something like that. It would need to be a rare frequency. It could be done. I'd be more than happy to sit amongst the group that are trying to put that together. There'd be an absolute. You'd have to coin flip as to whether or not it's hosted in Europe or America first. That's for certain.
Well, what you could do is effectively, excuse the golf analogy here, but you could effectively do it a bit like the Ryder Cup. So you do it 1 year, and then the other year, and then and that is every other year. So that could be basically it's an understanding of we'll have it this year, you guys can have it next year, and then rinse and repeat.
Yeah, but then also no disrespect to the communities over in Asia. They play a lot of cEDH as well.
That's also a very fair point as well.
You could have it every 2 years rotating. So that for example,
States,
Europe, I
Asia.
was controlling it. Yeah, and every 6 years you'd have it back. But say the prize pool would need to be huge. Sponsorship would need to be huge. you're sort of looking at time twisters and above for top 4 and all sorts. It would be a challenge. It's absolutely on the cards. Potentially before 2030.
To be fair, though, I'm a pure believer in that if there is enough, the difficulty is it. We'll probably touch on this in a minute, but the difficulty is the unsanctioned by Wizards. That's probably where the difficulty is. But
it is.
I think if there's enough interest, even unsanctioned events will be supported by TCG accessories at the very least. I think there is a desire for it. Obviously we saw it at Lisbon. Obviously, we had Dragon Shield, and you had some of the other local vendors. Dragon Shield being like I know they are a European company, but still,
and Card Market.
Yeah, and Card Market as well, exactly. So trying to have these companies, you're at the early stages of something that could be building. But in 10 years' time, do you know what? You may have Star City Games coming over to Europe to help host, or blah blah. Like, do you know? If there's enough interest and there's enough people. I personally could see it building to a point where you are having 1,000-person competition, if not more, and that is like the creme de la creme of the world. And then the problem is if it's the World Championships, with the utmost respect to even try to keep it singular, so even like the UK or even Europe or Japan, Asia, whatever you want to put it. When you bring things together, the stakes are a lot higher, and you will get bigger companies who want to be involved. They will want to be involved in that, because the amount of eyes on it will be incredible.
Yeah, certainly something on the cards.
Sure.
Be exciting. It might be something I might poke around after we host the Euros.
Yeah,
maybe conversations to be had. We'll certainly see how the communities grow. Certainly would be very exciting.
Nice.
Very, very exciting.
So
watch this space.
Yeah, watch this space. Exactly. Yeah. Because exciting times. I think that'd be incredible. I really do. I love the idea of that, like every 2 years, and I do love that sort of like America, Europe, Asia. I think that's fantastic. Like, any excuse to go spend some more time in Asia, I'm definitely down for that. 100%. Okay, couple probably smaller questions now, but still important ones. The ban list. So we have an EDH ban list, and I know you guys abide by that ban list. I know we've just obviously spoke about the recent big bans and how the community decided to do that. From your perspective, do you think that is fine and that's how we should stay, or do you think there should be a separate ban list, like you maybe alluded to earlier, maybe like a category 5 or bracket 5, ban list? Or do you think we should just keep it as it was intended? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So I got 2 answers, and this is me answering as a player and then a community lead.
Mm-hmm.
As a player, I think we should. I think it allows us to...
Sorry, a separate list, yeah?
Yeah, separate list.
Mm-hmm.
It allows us to mix things up a little bit. I think it allows us a bit more freedom to mix and match. I think with the more competitive mindset, I think we would be able to, and if there was enough collaborative effort looking at data from enough big events in a short space of time, and I know there are people that do it, you would be able to potentially make changes quicker.
Okay.
In terms of, this was a bad decision, get rid of it. And with us being a playtest friendly format for the most part, you can say, look, this is being unbanned. It's going to be watched for 2 months. Playtest it. Don't buy it. Like, who knows? But from a community aspect, and this bit does overrule the play a bit, above sort of my own views in terms of me playing, is that the transition into cEDH from casual up to then high power, let's just go 2-3 year period of someone being new to Magic and working their way up, the transition is easier if all of a sudden they don't start looking at the top and going, oh, hang on, I can't use half of these cards.
Yeah.
Oh, I've now got to look at extra cards, so the meta changes completely. The transition will be better if they are working with the same card pool the whole time, and it is purely them adding in more powerful cards that they've always had access to, but just working their way up the brackets, gaining access to more game changes, for example, and a change in mindset, not a complete coin flip on these 20 cards. You gain these extra 20-30 cards that are now unbanned. But you're not allowed these ones because they're more broken in a competitive environment, something random like that. Yeah, I think the transition and the community growth, it reduces a boundary or a barrier to participation in the events if they're all just playing from the same rule book.
Yeah,
So when are you going to be running a no ban tournament?
It might be a side event at UK Nationals.
Oh,
Yeah.
So,
I like
yeah. Well, last year we did pre C19. So conveniently, a week before the announcement, we banned Dockside for the side event, as well as no Dockside, no Thassa's Oracle. The event was won by 6 mana Teferi. It was filled with. Yeah, it was. See, there was people playing Flash Hulk, and I was on 6 mana Narset. There was the Gitrog. It was just a good time. There was no Thassa's Oracle, no Underworld Breach, no Dockside, but we were back on Flash Hulk. We might do a no bans list. We might just go back to we call it the Benfest 2024 rule set, where everyone has Dockside back. Dockside, Nardu, Mana Crypt, Jeweled Lotus. I don't know what we're gonna do. We'll probably leave it up to a vote. We might ones that did lose last year, but I'm potentially open to running a couple of different events. So the Pride, anyone can any commanders have partner.
Yeah,
that's an interesting one.
Yeah, that's really cool.
We realised that Kinnan and Dahada would just be disgusting. Just give it. So there's a slight tangent. The other day, me, Dylan, and Chris, the Kinnan, Dylan, and then Chris, he's got TNT built. We just shuffled all of our decks together. We didn't change the sleeves. We just created a 2 partners. Yeah, a 296 card tower.
So it's like a party box, basically.
Yeah, pie box. We kept our commanders.
Wow.
Giving Kinnan access to all 5 colors was not smart. Even if it's some of the random crap I've got in Cis-A, now we got absolutely wiped. Giving Kinnan access to all, we just pretended that all lands were like Wooburg lands. You didn't have to fetch, and yeah, it was a mess. So the event just gets won by Kinnan with all colors. I can tell you that already. Kinnan with just a harder sat in the command zone for a bit of fun. We might do the Pride rules. We might do no bans list. We might go back to Benfest 2024. Might just be one of them. Might just be normal CDH. We'll see what people want to do. I'll probably look at voting sort of through the summer. Maybe just do a process of elimination, but potential. So just looking at running a draft for people that want to.
Yeah.
With We Buy Any card there, speak to them and say, what spicy set can you offer me a box of? And see if we've got 16 people maybe want to do a draft a set from maybe pre-2010.
Yeah.
Something a bit interesting would be nice. We've got lots of options with growth this year. Certainly, everything's on the table at the minute. But no ban list. It's give me Golos back. I had it as a casual deck and it got banned.
Yeah.
I wasn't happy about it.
Is there such a thing?
Yeah, Golos casual. Yeah, it was awful. Big flips. I was casting Golos on turn 5. No time sooner. It was awful.
Brilliant.
It was a very budget big flips. No like big crazy dragons or anything. It was just whatever I had.
There's always some casual players that catch a stray from some of these bands. Like Prophet of Crufix was the one that hit me. My Gorgon Kindred deck got played.
That's hilarious. Hilarious. Dom, how about you take the next one?
Yeah, so obviously Wizards have taken over the format. Do you see pros and cons in this? What do you think of the bracket system? I guess it hasn't really had any real effect on CDH as such yet, has it?
No, not particularly. We're watching to see what the announcement is this month. I hope they unban something interesting. My mind isn't particularly too fussed about it. I think if a Wizards employee watches this, I mean, no disrespect nor a call out for a challenge here. I think with CDH and the way it is, in terms of it being unsanctioned and the need for playtest cards to address the financial investment, I don't think we will be affected by it. I don't think if Wizards decided to start a CDH circuit where everyone had to have the cards, don't get me wrong, it'll get some traction. And if there was one happening in the UK, I'd probably still go and play. I got 3 out of the 10 dual lands I'll run shocks for the rest.
Just win a couple of tournaments, so you get the rest, right?
Yeah, Ben, come on.
Yeah.
Just go win a couple. It's fine.
Yeah. I won my tropical island this year. It's fine.
Sweet.
Yeah, we'll talk about that event later. But yeah, I don't think it will change too much. The unsanctioned community will still live on because of the financial differences and the ability to change decks quickly through playtest. I still advocate, people buying the cards eventually once they know that they are cards they want. Your staples, that sort of thing. Within the community, it's sort of make sure you're actually going to be playing the cards. We'd rather people get comfy on a deck and know that it's a deck for them before they start making investments, because
there's
once
nothing
you buy
worse.
them, there's nothing worse.
Drop thousands of pounds on a deck and then realise you don't like the play style.
Absolutely. Picking up some of the cheap staples and having a folder of staples is something that I know a lot of us have. If we wanted to change a deck, it wouldn't take too long. We've got enough of the extra cards to re-sleeve and stuff. But back to the aforementioned question, it's cool, and I think it will provide a new sort of landscape to Commander. But for us, sort of set up in bracket 5, I think we will just continue as things were and see what gets banned and unbanned. I think I don't imagine they're going to do anything that would potentially reopen the question of, do we need our own rules committee and rule set again?
Maybe CEDH Horizons. So bracket 5 only Masters sales.
Yeah. They'll put Nardu in it just to rub salt in wounds and leave it banned. like a Legends card on FIFA.
Yeah.
You can't play it, but it's there, just like a reminiscent.
I love that. And look, so you've obviously sort of touched on this, but cEDH to me particularly as well is known as being a very proxy / playtest friendly environment. I say proxy / playtest because there is a difference. To me, a playtest card is exactly what you've just sort of said earlier. I'm thinking of getting into this style of deck, and I would like to play these cards A, B, C, D before I fully invest into it. And I think there's a big difference between that and a proxy, which is effectively just, it's not the card. It's an unsanctioned card, and there's almost no intent of getting. We've all seen sort of full decks that are proxied, and I don't have an issue with anything like that. But in terms of from an organizer's perspective, do you want to see any changes to this proxy friendly? What's the word I'm after? The environment is very proxy friendly at this moment in time. Do you want to see that changed, or are you more than happy with how it is?
I'm more than happy with how it is, because especially at a local level, sort of this answer can evolve as the events change and get bigger. For example, at a local level, when you're playing for a little bit of store credit or potentially a slightly expensive prize card, it means the entry you can play comfortably without much cost. When I'm playing, and this is me answering as a player here, I do like seeing the actual cards. My brain registers it better. The print offs, ideally in color. Black and white print offs are a nightmare in events. And again, I don't endorse counterfeits in any sort of way, but having the art recognizable. I had an event early in our community, June 24, up in Hull, and I think I had to redo the dockside count 5 times because the whole deck was custom art. I just couldn't tell what I was physically looking at. So to a certain extent, recognizable art is better. It allows people to read the board state properly. People will miss things if the art's completely different. And I've had people make this argument with me saying, yeah, but look at Secret Lairs. And I was like, that opens up a whole can of worms. I know they have outrageous arts, and they are the outlier, but they are still somewhat recognizable arts. Even if you can't read it at that moment, at least you know.
If you can read it.
I appreciate. Yeah, there are some absolute outliers, but there's only so much we can do. At a local level, play test away absolutely. No counterfeits. If you're going to print off, make sure they're cut neatly. Seeing paper poking outside the top of cards, I might think you're cheating.
Yeah.
Beyond that, when it started getting, now I'm quite generous at nationals, allowing it to be full playtest. I could, for example, request a certain amount to be actual cards, but I don't want to. I don't intend for it to ever be that. I think the Euros being, again, we had this discussion quite early on. Portugal taking the lead, we all sort of respected that decision, and also did agree with it. What was originally the reserve list plus 10, I think that covers most of the value on a deck. The reason for that playtest decision was obviously to maintain sponsorship. Certain companies won't necessarily want to be attached to events that are people just printing off, for example.
Yeah, makes sense.
Obviously, the main way that people do source the playtest cards is obviously makeplayingcards.com, mpc.com, and it's a way to obviously gain a similar thickness that obviously allows to look a little bit cleaner through the sleeve, just so you can see what it is they're attempting to play. But up at the bigger events, we sort of did come to the agreement that most of the time, and again there are outliers, but the investment in the deck often indicates more time played into the deck, a bit more commitment to the deck, and thus the play level will be higher.
Yep.
So I think the reserve list plus 10, especially now with Dockside, Jeweled Lotus, and Mana Crypt being gone, reserve list plus 10 does cover the majority of a deck in terms of value. A deck could still be in the hundreds, especially if you want foils and extended arts and stuff. But in normal arts, reserve list plus 10 does cover most of the issue.
Yep.
Lisbon was plus 25 because of the bannings. But I think when you go up to the bigger events, I think it's respectful to not be full playtest. It does create a bit more of an environment that does sort of think, yeah, if these people have spent the money, we can probably assume that they've played quite a bit with the decks and the cards, and they're more proficient, and we get a higher play level at the big tournaments.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, I think you've articulated that very, very well, and I totally agree with you. I think at local level, yeah, to a certain degree, as long as, I think you made the point about like bits of paper sticking out at the top of cards. You have no intention what that card is. To that player, that could be, that's my game-winning piece. That could be anything. Like, you just have no idea. I don't naturally go into games, casual or competitive, thinking that people are card counting or cheating. But it is very difficult when you see that type of stuff to just kind of go, I'm sure it's fine, particularly when you're talking about competitive events like you would do in cEDH. So I think that makes perfect sense. But also, yeah. I think you're right. I think there has to be a degree of respect, particularly at places like Portugal, that if you've got people that are, on the final tables, or even, top 12 or top 16, or whatever it is, if you're talking about someone that's potentially winning some serious prizes with a fully play-tested deck, there has to be some questions asked there, doesn't there? Like, to me, that's a bit of a. You can imagine it being a bit disrespectful. Do you know what I mean? I know value in cards is always a very personal thing. I'm very lucky that I have got a wealth of cards that I've been very lucky enough to trade into, and that sort of stuff. And I'm very lucky with that, so I do understand that. So from my perspective, some people can't, they can't afford some of the cards that are in these, the jewels and that sort of stuff. So I'd never want to take it away from people, but you do kind of sit there and you think, if you're playing for, you're talking about the States, they do sort of 2s, 4s, 8s, and 10 grand prize pools. That's some serious money on the line. Yeah. To then have someone win it with a fully play-tested deck, that seems a little off in my book.
Yeah. Ultimately cEDH is we want to play against your skill, not your wallet.
Of course.
But the integrity, especially for things like obviously sponsorship of the big events, there needs to be a little bit of competitive integrity. And I think one thing I will preface is that if anyone who goes on, for example, there's anyone I don't know that well personally that wins a UK ticket, we will make sure they have every card they need. They haven't got to worry about not having the cards because they can't afford them, the 30 that are going out there will have whatever decks they want. We will sort it. We will sort it one way or another. You know, I know there's people in the community who can be trusted and or who wouldn't mind lending out cards, and you know we'll sort it one way or another. It's not even if it's a last minute decision, we'll sort some next day postage or player mail, or I don't know, someone can get their deck handed to them in Munich because they decided to change it the night before.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the big ones, like I say, this community, you haven't got to worry about it. People will have the decks they want when they're out there. It'll be fine.
Again, to me, as a testament to the community that you're building, really, which is, you know, and you say that, and I believe you. You know, I know the people you're talking about, and I know they would be like, "Oh, you want to borrow this? Yep. You know, and I'm not saying they're being flippant. It's just that is how inclusive I found the community anyway. So that's nice.
Yeah, there's a range of like the age group in the community. Like I say, there are people who are in their late 20s and 30s, and also 40s who've been playing for years. They have all of it. But then, you know, there's youngsters in the community, and obviously do slight diversion onto the cost of living in the UK at the minute, and it's like they're not buying some of the more expensive cards for their decks at the minute.
They're not floating your time twisters and your LEDs and that sort of stuff, are they? Let's be honest.
Yeah, but even some of the more expensive non-reserve list cards, it's like, you know, if not all decks are running all 10 play-tested duels, you've got your fetch lands, you've got your shock lands, you've got your counterspell package. The 10 reserve list for Munich does cover quite a bit of it, but again, it's still a few £100, and you know, then you've got your flights, and you know, if you do qualify and your hotels, it adds up quickly. People shouldn't. I don't want obviously the UK players to worry about what decks they'd be taking if they don't have it all ready to go.
Good. Yeah, I think that's a very honourable way of hosting it, to be fair. And again, I think that will only but help grow a community, not stunt it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we've been talking for a good period of time, but I do want to ask one more question, and this one's a bit more personal. This one's a bit more personal to you, Ben. And I know there'll be people in the UK cEDH community that will know this, but there'll be some people that don't. What's your obsession with Jaffa cakes?
Yeah. I love it.
I don't know if you noticed, that's been over my shoulder the whole time.
I spotted it about half an hour ago,
but you
and
did.
I was like, yeah, they're Jaffa cakes.
Yeah.
It just... I've had them for years, and it became a bit more of a, I don't want to use the word viral like I'm a celebrity, but it came community viral because the Portuguese set up obviously the first website for the Euros, had all the information, and they said, can we have a photo for each committee member? I said, yeah, no worries. People provided headshots. I messaged my partner and I said, I need some. I don't have photos of myself, and I said, can I have some photos for the website? Send me some good ones. There's a couple of sort of headshots out for food, and then there was a picture of me stood in Audi with a box of the I'll get these sent over to you so you can put them on screen at this point in case people want to see them. There's a picture of me stood in Audi with a box of the stocking ones, just a full box of the stocking ones stood there, and that was my photo on the European website.
Yeah.
And I decided, and it got stuck there, and obviously as the whole Euros thing and the plan got announced, everyone had professional headshots, and I was just stood there in Audi holding this big box of like 16 or 20 tubes of Jaffa cakes.
Amazing.
That was obviously about half the height of me, and that's when it became famous. And then there was a stint where I was having very strong event performances, and I just happened to have had a box of Jaffa cakes for breakfast, and it just became a bit of a running joke.
Breakfast of champions.
Exactly.
And then and then I forgot to have one morning, and then that event I flopped, and it just became a bit of a running joke. So it was the Maidenhead of the second Maidenhead event. It was the one at the start of the year, which I won. I literally walked to the Tesco's with Jay, who was in the final with me, who I'd refer to as one of my nemesis in events. And I literally bought a box of Jaffa cakes and sat there. I was like, well, these are what I need to beat you. And did win the final.
Nice.
And But yeah, it was Christmas time this year, so obviously about 5 months ago. I saw the box in Audi and just recreated the photo. I don't know which one is on the website, whether or not it's the old one or the new one. But I just recreated the photo and kind of threw it in the server, and I was like, here's my picture for 2025. So yeah, it kind of stemmed. I have always loved them and scoffed them. I've eaten thousands in my time. Definitely, I'm definitely on 4 figures of Jaffa cakes at this point.
Nice.
But
What do you think of these Coca-Cola flavored ones?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say yeah.
No, the original.
Not for you.
No.
Oh,
I'm not like Coca-Cola's like the Coca-Cola bottles, for example, in Haribo's are the worst sweetener Haribo Star Mix bag.
You're not wrong.
There's a take that will get some pitchforks going.
You've definitely upset a percentage of the community. So I'll be honest with you. I actually I brought these today. Just because I knew you were coming on.
Yeah.
But I did actually have a client that they sort of said, they normally like to give me a cake or something before I go, and they're like, do you fancy some of these? And I'm like, Cola bottle Jaffa cakes, and I was like, these are either going to be very good or very, very bad. And me personally, I thought they were actually surprisingly very good. Really? I was expecting.
You paid £1.25. Mine were only 85p.
Yeah, but what size box is it?
Oh, 10. Oh, you got a 12 box.
No, mine's a 10 as well, unfortunately.
Oh, it's 10.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You got mugged.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you get stiffed out in the sticks compared to the towns, don't you?
Yeah, I guess.
Just quickly, I think so. The picture you were talking about, was that the one that you took when we were in Lisbon? Because I know I know there was a big box. I'm pretty sure there was a big box in the Audi that was down the road from where we were staying, and we went we went and grabbed some breakfast, and it was I think it was Ed and your partner, and I know you saw it was a big old box of some sort, and he's like, I've got to get a picture, and I wondered whether it was that one or not.
No, they were both taken here in the UK.
Oh, okay.
Because they're both McVitie's actual Jaffa cakes, which I'm going to email them to see if they will send us a care package for Benfest this year and send them the photos and write them the story, or get some sponsorship. It'd be brilliant.
To be fair, also when I was at Benfest, I did notice there was boxes and boxes of these at the back, and it was one of those things. As soon as I saw them, I was like, that's a really interesting thing to have at a Magic the Gathering competition. And then that's when I started to hear the rumbles about the joke, and I was like, okay, people have obviously, not only did you want to, feel your Jaffa cake habit, but obviously leading really into the community joke, which I thought was fantastic. Hence
I'm anticipating that. So there was like a couple of boxes. There was like 16 tubes or something. I have a feeling it's going to be a hell of a lot more this year. Nobody said anything yet, but I'm scared for how many boxes are going to turn up.
Imagine if everyone that attends brings at least a box to give to you.
Build a throne out of it.
Yeah.
What a photo! sit and give my pre-event speech from this throne.
I tell you what, McVitie's would be they'd be invested then. I'm telling you now.
Yeah, that would get them for year 3. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Cast iron. That's brilliant. Ben, look, thank you so much for jumping on. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It's been really good for our listeners, and I think it would be good for people to hear more about cEDH, particularly the UK scene and how it builds all up. I think it's a really interesting one. Thank you for your time, man. Really massively appreciate it. And I look forward to hopefully catching up with you in Benfest. And I'm planning to come over to Munich as well. So hopefully I can jump on with you guys again and join you for the wild ride as European Championships.
Yeah, absolutely. I say if that's your plan, I'll make sure I get you in the Munich group chat. The tag, the obviously for those that are qualified, it's already started, so I'll pull you in after this.
Oh, good man.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been great to obviously come on and fully kind of ramble on about obviously what has been. It was quite a crazy 2 years up to this point. It kind of has become a second job at this point. I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. There's lots planned. The community is growing. There's still a lot of things that we haven't particularly delved into either, and it's gonna continue to grow. And my hot take that I've already said is that Timna Thrasios will not win a UK qualifier this year. I've been saying it. Yeah, I've been saying it. Now, I will underline that if everyone just hops on it, it will happen. But based on the way the meta currently is, and what everyone is currently playing, I don't think it takes a qualifier this year.
And do you know what? And I really hope that this clip is then played back to you at one point later on in the year.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I'll live that down, and I can also add on Tyam sucks. But there you go.
Hey.
There's the slightly bigger dig. I don't like the deck. I avoid practice against it. It's fine.
That's absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Like I said, that's going to come back to haunt you one of these days. I'm sure it is.
Absolutely, that's fine. That is fine.
Beautiful.
I'll the gauntlet has been put down.
I want it to happen now. I want it to happen. I want someone to listen to this podcast and go, right, that's it. I'd love that. That'd be fantastic. It really would do.
Yeah, it's going to be a 4 TNTs in the final of Benfest, and it's technically a qualifier.
Yep.
And I'll have left the venue at that point.
Nah, do you know what even happen? You'll even cave into your own words and you'll be playing it yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to play this year. I'll have to have a chat to my judges. Though, so I didn't get to play last year.
Yeah.
But we will see. I want my name on that shield. It'll be good. Yeah, no, I just got to make sure I get to all of the qualifiers in Swiss, the TNT players. Just make sure stop them all myself.
Get out of there.
Yeah.
It's like the Moe's Tavern meme when he throws out Barney and then he pokes his head around the corner again, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like it's like the 300 clips. Me at the tunnel at the gap in the mountain.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of TNTs charging towards me. See how long I last. That final battle will be Benfest.
Yeah, amazing.
There's the thumbnail.
Yep.
It's me versus 3 TNTs in the final of Benfest. What a fight that would be.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Look, guys, for people that are listening, thank you very much for listening, and for the people that are watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. Look, what are your thoughts on cEDH? We'd love to hear, what you think about it. Personally, I think everyone in this chat, we love it. Ben obviously loves it, of course he does. But, I'm always a massive fan of it. I absolutely love it. But yeah, what do you guys think about it? Also, we've loved having all sorts of different guests on recently. Ben being a fantastic one to them. What do you guys want to hear next? Make sure you get in contact and let us know. And until the next one, we shall say our goodbyes. Ben, thanks again, and I can't wait
very much.
Can't wait to catch up soon. Dom, I'm sure we'll be recording again in 2 days' time. But hey ho.
Yeah. All I would say is, if you've got an interest in cEDH, maybe get in the Discord, talk to your LGS, get involved. If you're bored of getting killed on turn 74 by a Crater Hoof, then maybe it's the game for you.
100%.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I could definitely recommend people to do it. And also, if you don't have a community in your area, I know it's difficult, but maybe try and start one, because it takes one person to start a community. Yeah.
I'd also just add on to that, hop into the server. You might find there's other people locally that, player or store, if you want to get involved, please just get in touch and we can get the ball rolling. Might be a slow process to start, but the community is growing very quickly. I'm sure we can get something worked out.
100%. 100%. Right, guys. Pleasure as always. And everyone listening and watching, we'll catch you in the next one. See you later.